The police pulled 3 duffel bags out of my backyard, and my neighbor said he'd kill me if I found a 4th. Welcome to the Black Archive. Subscribe, turn off the lights, and let's open the files. My neighbor told me he'd kill me if I kept digging in my own backyard. I thought he was crazy. Turns out, he was desperate. My wife Jess and I closed on our first house last April, 3-bedroom in Henderson, Nevada, right off the 215 on a quiet cul-de-sac, backed up against open desert. The place was rough, peeling stucco, busted swamp cooler, and a massive dirt backyard the listing had described as a blank canvas. For $289,000 in this market, we weren't complaining, we had plans. Raised garden beds, a flagstone patio, maybe a fire pit. We spent the first weekend hauling bags from the Lowe's on Stephanie Street. The neighbor to the west was a guy named Dale, late 50s, wiry build, chain-smoking Pall Malls, along the cinder block fence. He introduced himself the first morning, didn't smile, just said, "Welcome," and stood there watching us unload boxes for 2 hours. The first note showed up Monday, written in Sharpie on the back of a glossy junk mail flyer for a local roofing company. "Please don't disturb the soil along the west fence. Drainage issues." The paper reeked of peppermint chewing tobacco. I thought it was weird, but I tossed it. We planted 3 desert willows along the property line that weekend. By Sunday morning, all 3 had been ripped out of the ground and thrown in a pile by our back gate. The root balls were mangled, like someone had torn them out by hand. Jess wanted to call the cops. I said we didn't know for sure it was Dale. She pointed at the second note tucked in our screen door. Same roofing flyer, same peppermint stink. Final warning, stop dig. And I installed a Ring camera on the patio. A few nights later, the motion alert went off at 1:40 a.m. I pulled up the feed and watched Dale walk along the fence on our side of the property, shovel in hand, patting down sections of dirt. Smooth, deliberate strokes. He did it for about 15 minutes, then walked back through the gate like it was the most normal thing in the world. I almost convinced myself he was just eccentric, territorial about the property line. Old guys get like that sometimes. I told Jess the same thing. She didn't buy it. Then the third note showed up. Same flyer, same tobacco smell. "You don't know what's down there. You don't know what's down there." I couldn't sleep after that. I checked the county assessor map. The fence sits about 3 feet inside our property. Whatever Dale was tending to, whatever he was patting down at 2 a.m. was on our land. The house had been vacant for over a year before we bought it. The renter before us broke his lease and left without explanation. I decided to dig. Tuesday night, 2 a.m. I'm in the backyard with a flashlight and a spade. The gate rattles. Dale comes through it. No shirt, boots, shovel in hand. He walks straight at me. The look on his face isn't anger, it's terror. "You need to stop." His voice is shaking. "I swear to God, if you dig there, I will put you in the ground." I tell him to leave. He steps closer. The shovel comes up. Jess is already inside, dialing 911. He keeps saying, "You don't understand. You don't understand. You don't understand." He swung. I ducked. The shovel rang off the cinder block behind me. I ran inside and locked the slider. He stood screaming in my yard until the cruisers arrived. Henderson PD arrested Dale and got a warrant for both properties. 2 officers started digging along the fence line on our side. About 18 inches down, they hit a black duffel bag, then a second, then a third. They sealed off the yard with yellow tape and wouldn't tell us what was inside. Not that night. I found out later through a records request. I wish I hadn't. The bags contained personal effects, connected to a string of unsolved cases from 2019. Belongings, identification, things that didn't belong to Dale but that someone needed to disappear. He'd buried them on our side of the fence before the previous tenant even moved in. We sold the house 2 months later, below asking. They found 3 bags. The detective told me, off the record, that the cadaver dog had marked 4 spots. This next file was flagged from a transcribed 911 dispatch log out of Overland Park, Kansas. The caller's voice starts steady. By the end of the recording, it isn't. My neighbor's wife had been dead for a month. I could still hear her crying every night through the basement window. I've lived on Maple Ridge Drive in Overland Park, Kansas since 2020. Quiet street. The kind where people wave from their driveways and bring each other banana bread at Christmas. My neighbor Gerald, early 60s, retired from somewhere he never talked about, mowed his lawn every morning at exactly 7 a.m. His wife Patty walked their corgi biscuit at 6:30. Rain or shine, you could set your clock by them. I work from home doing freelance copywriting, so I'm at my desk most of the day. I notice patterns, and when patterns break, I noticed that too. Patty stopped appearing in early March. No morning walk. No corgi. Gerald told me she had pneumonia. Bad case. Doctor wants full bed rest. He said it standing under his porch light, one of those smart bulbs, set to a sickly shade of amber that made his face look completely jaundiced. Something about him in that light felt wrong. I brought over a casserole. He took it at the door and closed it fast. Behind him, the entryway was covered in plastic sheeting. 2 weeks passed, no Patty. Gerald's routines shifted. He was up at strange hours, moving through the house with the curtains drawn. One night around 12:30, I got up for water and saw him in the driveway, scrubbing the inside of his Buick's trunk with a rag. The bleach smell reached my kitchen window 20 feet away. I told myself it could be anything. Maybe the dog got sick in the car. People bleach their trunks. That's a thing people do. I almost had myself convinced. Then I started hearing the crying. It was maybe a week later. Muffled, frantic sobbing. A woman's voice coming from somewhere low near ground level. I walked out to take the trash to the curb one Tuesday night and stopped dead on the sidewalk. It was coming from the basement window, well, choked, desperate sobs that cut right through the still air. My hands were shaking when I dialed 911. Officers arrived in 6 minutes. Gerald answered calmly, said Patty was resting downstairs and he'd go get her. He went inside, didn't come back. They forced entry after 4 minutes. They didn't find Patty alive. What they found in the basement was a baby monitor sitting on a folding chair next to the window well, wired to a small digital player, on loop, a recording of Patty crying, the same 12-minute audio repeating endlessly. Patty had been dead for over a month. Gerald had staged the sound so that any neighbor walking by would hear her, would believe she was alive, sick, home. He needed witnesses to her presence. He needed an alibi with a timestamp. I was the alibi. I was at my front window when they brought Gerald out in cuffs. He wasn't struggling, hands behind his back, walking slow like he was heading to the mailbox. The officers flanked him, but he moved at his own pace. As one of them guided him toward the cruiser, Gerald stopped. He turned his head and looked directly at my house, directly at my window. He smiled. Under that amber porch light, in that sick, jaundiced glow, he mouthed something. I couldn't hear it through the glass, but I watched his lips move clearly enough. Thank you. They found Patty at a secondary location. The case is still in proceedings, so I can't say where. The detective told me Gerald had been planning this for nearly a year. The baby monitor, the pneumonia cover story, the schedule changes, all choreographed. Every time I heard crying and glanced at his house, I was confirming his timeline. I was part of the performance, and I didn't even know it. I still live on Maple Ridge Drive. I can't afford to move. I'd put blackout curtains on every window. I don't look at his house anymore. The new owners moved in last month. They asked what the previous neighbor was like. I said he was quiet. I didn't tell them that some nights around 12:30, I still hear crying and the house is empty. The final file tonight was pulled from elite psychological evaluation at a university clinic in Baltimore, Maryland. The patient was a graduate student. She described what was behind her bedroom wall. What was behind her wall wasn't what she thought. The voice on the other side of my wall wasn't coming through the wall. It was already in the room with me. I moved into a duplex on East Lombard Street in Baltimore, my second year of grad school. Converted row house. Old, narrow, split down the middle into 2 units. My side was the right half, $875 a month. Working radiator, horsehair plaster walls cracked in a dozen places. The whole place smelled like old wood and radiator dust. My bedroom was upstairs, in the back. I set up my desk against the left wall, what I assumed was the shared wall with the neighbors, and figured we'd just have to tolerate each other's noise. The tapping started the second week, rhythmic, soft, like someone drumming their fingertips against the other side of the plaster. Every night, around 1 a.m., I figured the neighbors were night owls. I put in earplugs and pulled up a YouTube video on my phone, 10 hours of rain on a tin roof, the one with the blue thumbnail. Fell asleep to it most nights. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The tapping through the wall was syncing with the rain perfectly. Every drop, every pause, matched. I told myself it was pareidolia, my brain finding patterns in noise. Then the whispering started, low, breathy, just below actual words. I'd lie there, staring at the wall, holding my breath, trying to make it resolve into something I could understand. I doubled up earplugs and the rain video at full volume. The whispering got louder, not through the earplugs, around them, like it was adjusting to me. Then it changed. The whispering dropped into a low, guttural chuckling. Not laughter, exactly. Something practicing how to laugh. The same 3-note pattern, over and over, between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. every single night. I knocked on the neighbor's door one Saturday morning. A couple in their 20s answered. I asked about noise coming through the walls. They looked confused. Their bedroom was on the opposite side of their unit, they said. They didn't share a wall with me. I went home and stood in my bedroom staring at the wall. If their bedroom wasn't on the other side, what was? I pulled up the duplex floor plan from the landlord's listing page. My chest went cold. The layout wasn't mirrored. The wall my bed sat against. The wall I'd been hearing the tapping and the whispering and the chuckling through every night for weeks wasn't shared with the neighbor's unit at all. It was the wall to my own walk-in closet. I hadn't used that closet since I moved in. The knob was broken and the door wouldn't stay latched. So I'd shoved a bookshelf in front of it on the first day. That night, 1:14 a.m., I'm sitting up in bed, every light on, staring at the bookshelf, blocking the closet door. The tapping starts, rhythmic, patient. Then the chuckling low, wet 3 notes. I snap. I shove the bookshelf aside and slam both fists against the closet wall. I scream at it to stop. I'm screaming so hard my throat tears. Everything goes silent, instantly, total dead air. Then, from behind the door, not muffled by plaster, not distant, but clear and close, inches from the wood, a voice says, "Make me." Low, raspy, smiling. I don't remember leaving the room. I remember standing outside on East Lombard in bare feet, 34 degrees, calling my advisor at 1:30 in the morning. I never went back inside alone. Campus police went in the next day with my advisor. The closet was empty, no sign of forced entry. The single window inside had been painted shut for years, decades maybe. But the officers noted something I wish they hadn't told me about. Deep vertical scratches on the inside of the closet door, long gouges in the wood at about shoulder height, like fingernails dragging down. The landlord said the unit had been vacant for 2 years before I moved in. When I asked why, he paused for a long time. Then he said, the previous tenant had similar complaints. He wouldn't elaborate. I finished the semester sleeping on a friend's couch in Towson, broke my lease, didn't fight for the deposit. I just needed to not be in that building. I still sleep with that rain video playing, but I keep the volume low now. I need to hear what's in the room with me. Last week in my new apartment, the tapping started again. Same rhythm, Same wall. I don't have a closet on that side anymore. I have a staircase that leads to a basement I've never opened. That closes the archive for tonight. 3 neighbors, 3 things that should have stayed hidden. If you've experienced something next door that you can't explain, the Black Archive is always collecting. Subscribe, hit the bell, and keep your doors locked. I'll see you in the next file.